Hello my beautiful friends. Today I'm so excited to be sharing 11 thriller book recommendations that are all underrated in my opinion, underhyped. I checked on Goodreads and all of these except for one have less than 3,000 ratings and the one that has a little bit more is like 3,100 ratings. So overall I feel like these are very underhyped books that deserve a lot more attention. So book one is one that just came out at the end of last year. It's called The Family Lies by Angela Henry. This is the only book I've read by this author and I really enjoyed it. So our main character in this is Sabrina and she is a librarian who's working in a bookshop at the beginning of the book, but she gets hired by this wealthy family in town to be like their personal librarian and to like archive their collection. And she thinks she's finally had like a lucky break because she's really down on her luck. Until the police show up at the family's home interviewing her about a missing woman who was last seen with Theo, who is like the man of the estate, and she starts to get suspicious, and as the title suggests, The Family Lies. This is a very twisty psychological thriller. I still remember some of the twists and reveals for this, despite being someone who really reads a lot of mystery and thriller books, and I am looking forward to more from this author. The Hollywood Assistant by Cobb. This is a really fun, kind of domestic thriller. So our main character in this is down on her luck, much like our first. Her friend is tired of seeing her really down like this, so she helps her get a job working for this famous like Hollywood couple, and the Hollywood couple is just like perfect, you know, they have like the perfect marriage, they're both gorgeous, they have great jobs and careers, gorgeous house, and all she has to do is kind of be like running errands for them, doing little things here and there, not like a super work heavy job. It seems like the perfect thing. And the husband even offers to asks her to like read over some of his scripts, and she's trying to break into the writing industry, so this is a really big deal for her until she realizes things may be a little too perfect and things start to crumble beneath that perfect exterior. Yeah, I loved this. I thought this was so fun and crazy and had such a good time with it. For a more serious thriller option, I would say Safe and Sound by McHugh. This is very dark and it really exposes the underbelly of like small town dynamics and just expectations based on the community you grow up in. Basically, we have two sisters. They're being watched by their older cousin one night who's babysitting them. They're upstairs and they are taken out by the police because their cousin, like there's just blood everywhere in the downstairs and their cousin is nowhere to be found. A body is never found and they don't know what happened to her. Well, a couple years later, they are now about the same age as their cousin was when she disappeared or was murdered or whatever happened to her. And they are approaching graduating high school and they're starting to feel the pressure of the small town they live in and not getting too big for their britches or like, you know, moving on to college. Like kind of there's an expectation that as women they will, you know, get married young, have children, and of course there's nothing wrong with that if that's what you want, but that's not necessarily what these girls want or what their cousin wanted. And they start to wonder, did their cousin's lofty career aspirations and dreams have something to do with her disappearance? And they start to dig into it. This was gripping. The ending still, the ending still haunts me, and I had a really good time with it. I really loved how it explored small town dynamics like that. I found that to be super interesting. I liked the sisters' relationships. You're getting to read some past points of views. I really, really liked this one, and I have two McHughs behind me that I'm hoping to read this month as a result, so I'm really excited to read more from this author. This is one I recently recommended in my summer thriller recommendation video, which I'll link above if you didn't check it out. This is called Don't Tell by Mary Stone and McHugh, and this is a really great summer read because it takes place at a camp, a summer camp for kind of troubled teenage girls. So our main character in this has a lot of trust issues. She was abandoned by her father. She had a relationship with her high school teacher as a student, which didn't go well, of course. There was an attack that nearly killed her. So now for 12 years, she's been trying to live a perfect life. She's married to a great man. She's doing counseling work at Camp Wildfire, which is a place for like troubled teen girls. And everything's going okay for her until this camper named Amanda is like the crack in her armor, because Amanda forces her to confront her past and secrets she's been keeping from her husband. This was super gripping. I really couldn't put it down. Lots of twists and turns. I didn't see the ending coming at all, and I really enjoyed this. Haven't read anything else by these authors, but I'm definitely interested in checking out more from them. But this was a really great psychological thriller. Whispers of the Lake by Shanora. So this is the only one on the list that actually came out this year. So that might be part of the reason why it has fewer reviews. It actually just came out in June, but I feel like as a whole this author is underrated and deserves more hype, so that's why they made the list. So Whispers in the Lake features our main character Rose, who is like an investigative journalist reporter, and she has this best friend, or kind of ex-best friend as you're exploring the reasons behind that, who disappears. And this friend is a travel influencer, and so she's constantly posting updates. She's always on her phone. She's easy to reach. However, she goes to this Airbnb in this remote town. So she's staying at this cabin and she just disappears. Nobody knows where she is. No one can get a hold of her. So even though they have an estranged relationship, Rose decides to go. She rents the place. She tries to talk to the owners of the Airbnb, but they brush her off. And not just because they want to respect, you know, people's privacy, but they just seem very standoffish and unconcerned about her missing friend. And she starts to ask people around in town, and she's just getting weird vibes. And this is about her trying to figure out what happened to her friend. The ending for this, I was gobsmacked. I truly, wow. I was so surprised by the ending. It was one of the best thrillers I think I've read this summer so far. I had such a good time with it. Really, really great read, especially for summer with the lake setting, the cabin. I loved it. Lots of great subplots going on with the main character. I thought this was a fantastic read. And in general, this was my third Shanora Williams, and I think she deserves a lot more credit and hype than she gets. So I'm just going to keep shouting her from the rooftop because she deserves it. The Night Side by DeLuca. I don't think I've ever heard anyone else talk about this thriller, and I really enjoyed it. This is like a good mystery thriller combo, and our main character for the first time in many, many years is going back to the small town where she was raised because her mother is gone and presumed dead. However, her mother, when she was, you know, when she was growing up with her mother, it was just the two of them, and her mother is a con artist and like a psychic scammer. And so you're reading these points of view from her past of what she went through as a child, and how she was even kind of forced into some of the scams that her mother would be doing. And then of course this caused a lot of turmoil for herself because she didn't feel right doing that. But it's also fascinating as a reader to see the behind the scenes of the scams. I personally am really fascinated by con artists. I know it sounds bad, but in fiction I find it very interesting because to have the confidence to pull something like that off is what I think impresses me. So to see the behind the scenes of how they pull it off, I think is really interesting. And I really did find the past timeline super interesting to see how she was kind of forced into her mother's schemes, what they were doing, you know, and how she finally got out of the small town, and now she's being forced back because of her mother's presumed death. But she's also wondering, is this her mother's greatest scam yet? Is she actually gone, basically? I'm gonna leave it at that. I thought this was fantastic. I had a really great time with this, especially just reading the past timeline, like the events and stuff leading up to the conclusion. I found it to be fascinating. Cold to the Touch by Kerri Hakoda. If you like more of like a crime thriller with the main character being a detective, this is a really good one. This is also a serial killer thriller. Our main character in this is a detective. You're reading from his perspective, and he actually needs the help of his ex, who is this wildlife expert, which creates this really interesting emotional subplot that I really liked. I think it added to the story. But the detective's name is Beans. That's what they go by his last name. He's a homicide detective, and he basically gets involved in this serial killer who's a spree killer, meaning they're killing very quickly, and this young woman's body, who's actually a barista that he recognized from town, because it's a very small town in Alaska. This is the perfect winter thriller. If you're looking for freezing cold, like winter vibes, this is it. And like I said, it takes place in Anchorage, so he recognizes the barista, and more women are beginning to show up in the snow, and unfortunately, because there's a lot of wildlife in the area, a lot of the evidence is destroyed. So he is on this frenzy trying to figure out what is happening and trying to stop another victim from like occurring, basically. So this was just an edge of the seat, like couldn't put it down. I read this like I think almost 2 years ago. I still remember like some of the twists and turns at the end and one of the final scenes. I was just on the edge of my seat. If you're someone who does enjoy more of like a crime mystery thriller, there's this constant impending doom because you don't know when another murder is going to happen because the serial killer is just going at such a fast rate. So if you're someone who likes kind of like a crime fiction mystery, but you want it to be fast-paced and thrilling, this is a really good one. The next one is The Engagement Party by Finley Turner. If you're someone who likes some domestic thriller situation situation, if you like an engagement party or like kind of wedding setting, this one is perfect. Our main character is Cass, and she's engaged, and she's really excited to meet his family. But she didn't realize is that they're actually this extremely wealthy family, like very influential, like involved with politics, etc. They have this huge estate, and she immediately kind of feels like an interloper. She feels kind of nervous. They're going to be throwing this huge party with all of these very like famous and like influential people, and at the night of the engagement party, she is forced to kind of confront her dark past. She also is receiving these anonymous threats via social media throughout the book, and I thought this was just a really fun time. Very like wacky, you gotta suspend your disbelief a little bit, but definitely just a good, fun, entertaining thriller in my opinion. This next one's called The Night of the Storm by Nishita Parekh, and I'm actually surprised this has a 3.15 star rating on Goodreads. However, it does have just over 3,000 ratings overall, so I feel like it's still kind of underhyped, and I want to share what this one's all about. It's kind of a locked room mystery thriller about this family who is trapped during Hurricane Harvey in this huge home. It's a multi-generational Indian family, and our main character, or like central character, is Gia. She is very much struggling. She has a 12-year-old son, Ishan, and he's been suspended from school recently for getting into a fight. Her apartment where they're living is forced to evacuate due to the hurricane, so her sister Seema is like, hey, come over with us, we have a big home, it's safe, we can all like hang out here together while we wait the storm out. So she does. However, they're not as safe as they think, so there's this impending doom with the storm. Then you have other family members who are arriving, and someone ends up dead, and they're all locked here and trapped. This is a great thriller if you enjoy a locked room or like isolation trope setting, storm trope. I love the multi-generational family. I love seeing the interactions between everyone. And I personally really liked this one. I think I gave it 4 stars when I originally read it, so I was kind of surprised to see that it didn't have the highest rating, but I really enjoyed it. Echoes of Memory by Sara Driscoll. This one has a very fascinating premise. This is definitely more of a slow burn mystery thriller situation, so keep that in mind depending on what you're looking for. And our main character is Quinn, and she is a florist in San Diego, and she is struggling with post-traumatic amnesia. So she basically can't remember anything new. So what she does to kind of cope with this is she keeps a notebook on her at all times. So she's constantly writing down everything, like every little detail, you know, how people look, how they dress, and she actually witnesses a murder, and she is the only witness, but she struggles with amnesia. So it's this very interesting kind of combination of factors, but the detective's actually really excited to see her notebook because she writes everything down, and she's written down details about this murder, and she's trying to remember more things before the murderer comes after her. So I really enjoyed this. Definitely a little bit more slow burn, but a really fantastic thriller that just leaves you on the edge of your seat, rooting for Quinn. She was a really likable character from what I remember. I really was rooting for her the whole time and like, come on Quinn, you can do this. So I really enjoyed this one. Okay, so this last one is one that I really enjoyed. It does have more ratings and reviews than the last one. I think it has about 6,000, so a little bit more hyped, I guess, than some others on this list, but I still want to include it because it's one I don't really hear much about. It's called Just One Look by Lindsay Cameron, and this one is great if you really want to get into the mind of someone who's like kind of mentally becoming unhinged. Our main character in this is Casey, and she is adrift. She's having a hard time in life. She's not able to get a good job, so she ends up doing this job where she's reading correspondence for this company and like going through emails, deleting things, and she realizes that she has access to this businessman in the building's emails, and she can see his emails to his enchanting, beautiful, oh so perfect wife, Annabelle. And she knows she shouldn't, but she starts to follow their email conversation. She just lives for little tidbits like, what does Annabelle buy? Like, what kind of perfume does she wear? And she starts to emulate Annabelle, and she also starts to kind of arrange for a chance meeting with Forrest, the husband, which leads her to suspect maybe he's not so perfect in his marriage after all. This is very much like an obsession, almost like stalker-like kind of a thriller where you're actually in the mind of the person who's becoming slowly obsessed and more of a stalker. And that's what really pushed it over the edge for me, was it kind of convinced you as you were reading it that this was okay. Like, you almost felt like, oh, this makes sense, like, because it was such a slow, like, kind of logical descent in a way, so it really messes with your mind, and that's why I think I enjoyed it so much. Alright guys, that is my last one. I hope you guys enjoyed this short, quick list. I just wanted to hype these thrillers up because I feel like they don't deserve I feel like they just don't get the credit they deserve, and some of these are some of my favorite thrillers. Watch my channel and watch like my thriller playlist, which I'll link above. If you've watched all the videos in that, I'm sure you've heard me talk about some of these several times over because I love them so much, but I just don't hear people talking about them, and I adore them. So thank you guys for watching. If you enjoy thriller content, if you like mysteries, cozy mysteries, thrillers, anything with mystery at the heart of it, I talk about that here on my channel every week. My name is Amy Marie. Please hit like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys in my next video. Bye!